Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. When I served my internship in two congregations in rural Nebraska, there was one family that sort of adopted this young, newly married couple from the South and often invited us to their home after worship for Sunday dinner. In fact, every one of those dinners was a multi-generational event with their parents and adult children, and then their children too. We gathered for the meal around a large table full of food, and while the food was delicious, the real focus was on those people around the table and on the tablecloth. You see, our hostess used the same tablecloth for all those Sunday dinners, and the first time we were there, she gave us a Sharpie marker to sign our names on the tablecloth. After the meal, she would then embroider our signatures with thread. Everyone who ate around her table signed that tablecloth, and every meal after that included them, those around the table and all those who had come before. The meal was a celebration of food. The table was a gathering of those present and absent, all there in love. In this week after Easter, we are continuing to exult in our joy at Christ's resurrection, and rather than cloud up our minds with deep theology or complex ideas, we have lightened things up and are focusing on some of our Easter traditions, what they mean and where they come from. One of the ways we celebrate Easter is with family gatherings and feasting, so that those feasts are our topic for today. The thing is, in the Bible, heaven is most often described as a great feast or banquet. The image is pervasive all over the Bible. In Isaiah 25, God speaks of making a feast for all people on God's mountain. Jesus tells parables about inviting people to banquets and feasts. After his resurrection, Jesus prepares breakfast for his disciples on a beach, an event I have heard described as grace served hot. I love that. But imagine how powerful that image is for the common person in that day, when procuring food was much more of a challenge than it is today. Imagine the joy and wonder the idea of a great banquet would be in those times. A gathering with more food than you had ever seen, sumptuous food, as the Bible describes, and you were invited. No more struggle, no more hunger, no more worry, only fullness and joy. No wonder that image was so meaningful. They needed God, and this image offered hope and goodness and fulfillment. That's the other thing. Over and over in the Bible, we are invited into God's joy. So much of life is caught up in fear and worry. God says that we should let go of all that and get ourselves caught up in God. And completely dependent and trusting in God, we are free to exult in joy. The other part of that concerns hospitality. You see, the party isn't just for us or even for people like us. God's banquet is for everyone. So many of Jesus' teachings express concern for the outsider and the margins of society. Old Testament passage after Old Testament passage call us to care for the outcast, the immigrant, the refugee, the widows and orphans. Their fears and worries, so different from ours, are put away too, not just in heaven, but here and now as well. As God's people, we are called to make that happen here and now. God has a heart for the outsider. Everyone is invited and included in God's kind of feasting, in God's dinner party. You may not have thought about it, but every time we gather for worship, we gather around a meal. Now, you might snidely be thinking that a small piece of bread and a sip of wine doesn't make much of a meal, but the bread and wine make up our meal of salvation and love. It may not fill our bellies, but it does fill our hearts. As we gather around that altar, we are gathered with all the rest of God's family, those who have gone before us, those who will come after us, those who are celebrating this meal all over the world. All of us are gathered together around God's table with Jesus as the host of the meal. It's a foretaste of the feast to come, where we will be gathered together in heaven around God's banquet table with Jesus. I hope you think about that when you come to the altar. It's our family gathering. It's our meal of joy. What's all this got to do with Easter? Well, Easter is the reason for the feast, the cause of our celebration, the foundation of our joy. Christ is risen and fills us with God's joy, and feasting and celebration just have to burst out of us. We gather because of Jesus. Our hearts leap at our salvation. Our hope is made real. You know, right now we celebrate the foretaste of the feast to come. One day we will sit down to God's banquet table, and there, I'm betting you'll find your name on God's tablecloth. Because of Christ, you have a place at the table forever. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.